The first qa'idah you have to understand over this is a qa'idah usuliyyah, so make sure you write it down in your usul chart. Al-Amr lil-Wujoob. This is a qa'idah which you'll use again and again, so make sure you understand this well from this point. This qa'idah is agreed upon by majority of jurists and legal theorists referring to the usuliyyun. They all say that al-Amr lil-Wujoob. Now, why do the Hanafiyyah say this? Again, we're going to explain this in light of the Hanafiyyah, the usul of the Hanafiyyah. The Hanafiyyah explain, when they explain the usage of words in the Quran, in Kitabullah, and likewise in Sunnah, but they mention in the Kitabullah section, they make 4 classifications. And each classification of the word is based on a different perspective. What does that mean? That means you can have a classification found on perspective, based on perspective 1. It can be brought together with perspective 2. You can have both. You can have a single word which is referred to, for instance, as khas, which is from classification 1, and it can also be referred to as a haqiqah, which is from classification 2, because of the fact that they're from different perspectives. Alright, so don't think that if a word is khas, it cannot be haqiqah or majaz or sarih or kinaya or mufassar or lahir or nas, etc., etc. No, it's possible for them to gather. Now, that doesn't mean they're always going to gather. It depends on the usage, right? It depends on exactly whether the definition of khas or haqiqah is applicable or not. So they mentioned that they have 4 classifications, and the first of these classifications, they say, is bi'tibar al-wada', on account of coinage. How is the word made? How is the word coined? They say فاللفظ ينقسم باعتبار الوضع إلى خاص, or they say باعتبار اللغة إلى خاص وعام ومشترك ومؤول. خاص, عام, مشترك, and مؤول. What we're worried about right now is khas. Again, we're assuming you have covered a primer in usul, or you will be covering a primer in usul. The discussion we will bring will be simple and will be easy to understand, and we'll take you through it step by step. Al-khas they define as ما وضع لمعنى معلوم أو لمسمى معلوم على الانفراد. Khas is that which has been coined for a known meaning or a known entity individually. So it's referring to a single entity. Again, single can be in the form of a person. It can also be in the form of a universe or an entire category. When you look at it from the perspective of it being one entity or one thing. This is discussed in more detail in the books of usul. But we have to understand over here that al-khasu ma wudi'a, it has been coined for لمعنى معلوم, a single meaning, على الانفراد. Alright, individually, a single meaning. For this reason, the amr, the صيغة al-amr is khas. Why is amr khas? لأنه وضع لمعنى معلوم على الانفراد. It's been coined for a single meaning. What has amr been coined for? Amr has been coined for wujub. So the first step over here is to understand that al-amr باعتبار الوضع لفظ خاص. And this is why the usuliyyun, when they discuss amr, they bring it after the discussion on khas. And they actually state, al-Bukhari has mentioned this in the Kashf al-Asrar, ومنه الأمر. I believe al-Bazdawi is also mentioned, ومنه الأمر, أي ومن الخاص الأمر. Amr is a form of khas, in the sense that just like there are other words that fall under khas, amr will also fall under khas. Why? لأنه وضع لمعنى معلوم على الانفراد. It's been coined for a single known meaning. What is that single known meaning? Al-Wujoob. Now, is this sufficient to establish أن الأمر للوجوب? There is one more step. So keep this in mind when the Hanafiyyah explain that al-Amru lil-Wujoob, there are 2 steps we're going to take over here at this level. The reason we're going to take 2 steps is because the first categorization is bi'tibar al-wada'. What has the word been coined for? Is the word coined for a general meaning? Is the word coined for a specific meaning? Is the word coined for multiple meanings? Has one of the meanings for which the word has been coined for given preference? What is the word coined for? This is the first step to understand over here. What has the word been coined for? The second step beyond this is to see how is the word being used. Because a word might be khas in terms of coinage, but if it's being used in a figurative sense, then it being khas is irrelevant. And this is why you have to understand, even when you study the books of usul, when they mention a string of examples after mentioning the khas, they mention a string of examples in the books of usul after mentioning the hukum of the khas word, you have to understand that it's not just it being khas. Number 1, it's khas bi'tibar al-wada'. And number 2, bi'tibar al-isti'mal, you have to make sure that it's being used in its literal meaning. And that's our second discussion, which is the second categorization. ثم اللفظ ينقسم باعتبار الاستعمال إلى حقيقة ومجاز وصريح وكناية. In terms of usage, the word can either be حقيقة or مجاز. What is حقيقة? الحقيقة ما استعمل فيما وضع له. that word which is being used for the very meaning it was coined for. It's being used in the meaning it was coined for. وَالْمَجَازُ مَا اسْتُعْمِلَ فِي غَيْرِ مَا وُضِعَ لَهُ. And majaz, the figurative word, is that which is being used in a meaning for which it has not been coined. It's a figurative usage. Majaz we'll worry about later. For haqiqah right now, all we have to understand is that if a word can be a haqiqah, if a word is in front of you, it can be used in its literal meaning, or it can be used in its figurative meaning, a majaz. In that scenario, the default is that the word will be used in its literal meaning. This is the default. Unless there is a qarina صارفة عن معناه الحقيقي. Unless there is an indication on account of context, on account of an external reason, which suggests that this word is not being used in its literal meaning. Only then will we say that the figurative meaning is at play. So the default in any word is that it's being used for the meaning it was coined in. Unless there is an indication that suggests that this word is being used in a figurative meaning. إذا دار اللفظ بين الحقيقة والمجاز فالحقيقة أولى ما لم تكن قرينة صارفة عنها إلى المجاز. As long as there is not an indication, either in the form of context or in the form of an external reason, etc., that indicates or that averts the word from being used in its literal meaning and suggests strongly that it is being used in its figurative meaning. So there's two steps over here. Step number one, al-Amr wudi'a li-ma'nan ma'lumin ala al-infirad. Amr is khas. Why is it khas? Because it's been coined for a specific meaning, an individual meaning. Wa huwa al-Wujoob, and that is wujub. The second step is to be certain of the fact that it's being used in that literal meaning. And the answer over here is, in this verse, we don't have any qarina صارفة عن الوجوب. We don't have any indication or suggestion that the Amr is not being used in its literal meaning. Therefore, we apply the default. What is the default? The default is that any word will be used in its literal meaning. And in this, by saying this, we have using usul understood that the Amr in this verse is certainly and truly for wujub. So there's two steps. Al-Amr wudi'a li ma'nan ma'lumin al-infirad wa huwa al-wujub. Step number one. Step number two, ثم استعمل في معناه الحقيقي. And why are we saying this? Because there's no قرينة صارفة عن المعنى الحقيقي. Now there are more steps obviously, but for now we will suffice at this.